So let's get to the second game. And this time we're playing with the black pieces, Mario. And we have the Sicilian, the Taimanov. Well, no, this is not called the Taimanov variation. Actually, I don't know what this is called. A6 line here. Maybe it's also called the Taimanov, but the Taimanov is queen c7. So, no clue. Let's just see what happens. Names are not that important anyway. Bishop d3, queen c7. Actually, this is a line I play myself with white. So I have a little bit of knowledge here. Queen c7 is not the main move, as you know, but I think it's okay. And now your opponent played f4. And here you play bishop c5 check. And I want to spend some time here because later on in the game there's not too much to cover for me. So bishop c5 check is not the main line, and I think you are in some trouble then. So what I would recommend you to check this line, to check the opening. And in general, I felt like also in your previous games that it's often like with white you're not getting much out of the opening, and with black you are often in some discomfort, let's put it like this, in minor difficulties maybe, out of the opening early on. So this could be an area for you to improve on, obviously, and that could make a difference. That's what I meant to say. So d5 is the best move here in this position, and we're going to spend a little bit of time. In general, white has two ways to play this position, but sooner or later really he has to go e5 because he never wants to take on d5. That would just leave black with a strong center. So either he goes e5 now, or well, sometimes they also go king h1 here, but usually they just go e5 sooner or later, and then we get a position like this where white goes knight a4, preparing c4 to make sure that black doesn't get a strong pawns here on d5 and c5. And there was a recent game which you also copied here by Bokarov and Rublevsky, where they exchanged knights, and now just bishop e7. Black is just developing, and black's position is quite sound. Here f5 was played, otherwise black might even play g6 himself, shutting down the counterplay here by white. And then black has its own play. The bishop of course can go on this long diagonal. There's the half open b file, there's c5, c4, d4. White has to be careful because if he's not, then this could also swing in black's favor. Here f5 was played, takes, castle, but here really black doesn't have to worry about anything, I believe. This seems completely fine. The pawn on e5 to me looks more like a weakness than a strength, and this should be fine. So let's go back and look at the alternative that white has, is to keep the tension here in the center, and this is just the most played moves in this position. Rook e8, now bringing the bishop back to f8, and also here, I mean, sooner or later white has played all the useful moves now. If he wants to do something, he needs to play e5, and again this maneuver knight a4, and here, like I said, g6 can be a useful move to stop f5. And yes, you have to watch out for maybe g4, f5, maybe something like this. But in general, it's also very double-edged for white, as if he moves the pawns here, either the h or g pawn, of course he's opening up his own king. So I would recommend you to look into this d5 and familiarize yourself a little bit with these positions. Because of the bishop c5, king h1, d6, I think white has a strong option available. He played queen e2, which is also not bad for white, but e5 is quite strong here immediately. And it's no surprise because white is better developed and your king is still in the center, so why shouldn't he open the game even if he has to give a pawn? If you take the pawn, which is not recommended, then the bishops come out, and here we see the problem already after a few moves. Bishop comes to d6, stopping black from castle. There's an exchange sacrifice possibility here, and this is very promising for white. So after e5, black would need to play knight d7, knight e4, and here yeah, this is also very promising for white. Of course, not as good as the other position, but just bishop e3 here. And either you retreat with the knight, but white has the two bishops, and especially the dark squared bishop is so important for black in these positions, or you take on d3 when in this opposite colored bishop position. I would love to be white, honestly. I mean, threatening bishop c5 right now, threatening to dominate, have the half open c file. This just looks so bad. Computer doesn't think it's that bad yet, but if I look at it with my human eyes, this looks incredibly bad. I don't know. So yes, I'm sure you're getting my point. Yeah, you have to be careful in the opening, especially if you're playing the Sicilian, because if white plays with some energy here and plays e5, then you could be in trouble very early on. You play queen e2, now you stop e5, you play bishop d4, bishop d2, and now you castled, and it would be better, as you also pointed out, to play e5 here. The point is that the bishop on d4 is not that stable, and if you play e5 after knight a4 now to push the bishop away, you can take on f4 and you get the square for the bishop here. Even knight d7, you get a nice square for the bishop or knight on e5. And if white goes f5, then okay, the situation is clear in the center. White won't play e5 anymore. You can maybe play h6 to stop bishop g5, and this is at least clear. Position, of course, quite complex still, but at least the situation in the center has been cleared. The problem with castle is that here white could go knight a4. Now you wouldn't be in time to play, I mean, you can still play e5, but here you are not in time to get the bishop to e5, and white has some options here. This is the line you gave, and here there are some ideas. Rook takes f6 is possible, but also to play b3 to get the knight back to b2, and complex position, but looks like white is a little bit better here. Anyways, your opponent went a little bit crazy, and like I mentioned already earlier, if white pushes these pawns in front of his king, he might regret it later on as his king is opened up. And now you play g6. I think this is a very reasonable move. There was also the option to just let white play g5, just play bishop b7 and knight d7, which is good for black as well. There was also the option to play c5 and to go for some tactical complications, which in the end are favorable for black. To go c4 here, if white takes, you take on d3 and take on f6 afterwards, and of course you're doing very well here with the two bishops. The king's so open, and also now that this bishop doesn't have a counterpart, it will be very dangerous. And if white takes on c4, there's bishop takes c3, and the point is now knight takes e4 if white takes back on c3, and bishop b7 if white takes the knight. And again, white takes on f6, you take back, and again the weak king here is really a problem for white. So just something I'm curious if you considered this, to play c5 and to find a solution to a position like this. Like I said, g6 is also good. c5 would have been just a little bit better still. Rook a1, bishop b7, h3, c5, and yes, you're playing all the right moves here. Developing, playing c5, opening the bishop, and now you're doing everything right. d5, opening up the position against the white king, and the white king is just too vulnerable here. King h2. Yeah, already white is in trouble, but king h2 is a blunder, which you exploited, and this is also important. Accepting the gifts that your opponent gives, and this is what you're doing here, winning a piece with this little combination, because now one of these two on the c-file will drop. And yes, the rest of the game is not really of much interest. I'll just show it briefly, because you're just a healthy piece up, plus playing against an open king by white. So this is just completely over, and I think you're doing a good job here, practically exchanging the queens, giving white not any hopes, of course. And yeah, it's kind of ridiculous that your opponent is still playing on here. So let's get to the end pretty quickly. And yeah, every trade helps, of course, every piece trade. And here we have another trade. You win the pawn d4. Now finally your opponent decided he has seen enough. So very nice win. But let's not forget the opening. That's why I spent some time there. And like I said, this could be this could really make a significant difference if you spend some more time on that, or maybe find yourself a safer opening if you don't want to spend that much time on theory, because the time enough, or I guess this line that you're playing here, you need to know some stuff for sure, as pretty much with every Sicilian you could say. So this is, I think, something to consider. And let me check the chat. All right, Mario. Yeah, instead of queen c7, you're saying in the opening, you could also play d5 immediately. And yes, I agree. This is the main move and it's also the best move. And yeah, you just need to spend some time with that, and also get accustomed to the different pawn structures, which are quite complex, I would say. It's a kind of unique structure. But yes, d5 is the best move, yes. Maybe I could show you real quick the main line and what I would recommend to you here. Knight f6, rook e1. I mean, this is one of the tries white has, but I think it's the most critical is to play queen g4 here. And for a long time, g6 was considered to be the main move. But bishop h6 has been proven quite uncomfortable for black. Castle, of course, doesn't work because of bishop h6 as well, and black would lose the exchange. But king f8 is the move to go, and then the queen can be pushed away, possibly with h5. And then we'll see something similar again, where white plays knight a4, c5, c4, and we get this kind of pawn structure here, and complex. But I think black is okay, even though personally I would like to play this rather with white. Anyways, this is where you would need to spend some time on if you want to continue playing this line. Let me see, any other questions? Do you have a book or a video to better understand this defense? No, I don't know one off the top of my head. I mean, it's kind of a rare line because usually most people in this position play queen c7 or maybe knight f6 or d6. But a6, of course, has also been played a lot, but not as much as the other moves. So no book comes to mind right now, or video series.